Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Casting Angles with Mac Brown. Mac, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Marvin?
Dude, I'm just trying to stay cool. It is hot, hot, hot in the Piedmont.
Yeah, I bet. It's hot up here. If we're hot in the mountains, I always think, I'm sure it's hot down in the Piedmont and the low country.
Yeah, we're in Charlotte. We're going to be bumping 100 degrees pretty close, probably until Thursday. So, we were talking before we started recording, and we've talked a lot about when you should and shouldn't fish and all that kind of good stuff. But, as we head deeper, into the summertime, the water flows are going to get lower and lower if you're not fishing a tailwater. And so we thought it'd be a good idea to kind of talk to people about, what do you do when you got to go fish low and clear water?
Yeah, I think that's a good topic. First thing, go up higher. Try to get up high and fish early in the morning at daylight. And as far as equipment goes, lengthening up the leaders and adding greater, longer tippet and going that route would really help things, because when water gets lower, it's going to get a lot more technical than with big water,
Yeah, and I would say too, like if you roll your own on the leader basis, if you want to try to get a little bit of help, turning over a longer leader, you want a stiffer butt section, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's the key. There's a lot of confusion on that over the years where people thought they just add a whole bunch of tippet. Bad things happen when you add way too much tippet, and you just get a bunch of uncontrollable slack, So yeah, butt section, mid section, you don't need but a few feet of 3 to 4 feet of tippet tops. Most of the leaders the other.
Yeah, and so most of the time, right? You can either take a store-bought leader and clip it at the loop and add more butt material, right? Or you can roll your own.
Yeah, just roll your own. Yeah, it's a lot easier. Well, yeah, man, I prefer to roll on, but yeah, that's a good idea. If you're going to have, like I say, a 9-foot, 12-foot store-bought leader, then just add some butt section to it. That'd be the way to go. And then add a little bit of tippet, but it'd work out a lot better. I've seen it so many times since the mid '80s when we got into doing this, Marvin, for a living, that everybody would just add tippet to a short leader to begin with, and it's just kind of disastrous as far as performance,
Yeah, unless you've got like a bead on that fly, you're going to have a really hard time not having a puddle of mono or fluoro at the end of that leader.
Yeah, that's what would happen. And it just really helps to have it where it transfers properly. It means coming from the bigger stuff, that way you still have your accuracy, you still have, precision base, because in this part of the country, it's the highest number of deciduous trees in the world. So you're all the time having to drop the casting plane down there to the side, send something up, underneath, like rhododendron's usually the most common thing. But there's other things. I mean, there's a lot of other trees and stuff too over the water, but rhodo being probably the predominant. And whenever you're doing that, that's going to transfer a lot better. In the horizontal plane, even having some butt section where it sends the fly way up and under where you want it to be.
Yeah, and I would say too, on presentation, right, if you're nymph fishing, you should leave the indicator in your shirt pocket, right? And because it's just going to make a plop, and you're going to probably spook fish, and you probably either want to use yarn or maybe use a dry fly as an indicator. And then I always tell people that, when the water is skinny, you got to kind of plan your presentation. So maybe you have to, put the fly down, well above the fish so that they don't get a splash right on top of their head and then go hide under the rocks, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, leave the bobbers out, and really go to more tactical, finesseful setups like small, micro caddis and things like that's probably a lot better option. We were doing that a lot. We've just been hot, like you said, but we had like a month of rain every day and overcast weather, and we were doing a lot of dry dropper and playing around a lot with the rigging. Everybody always thinks the small emerger or whatever goes off the point, and a lot of times we'll do it the other way, where the dry flies at the end and come back up, and then have just a short 4 or 5 inch tag, and then have the emerger in between the dry fly and you, and that way it's pretty easy to tell when something happens, because any kind of disturbance, you're looking out towards where your dry fly is, and you see the disturbance always if a fly is only 4 or 5 inches deep. you'll normally see a disturbance there on the surface. And that makes it a little bit easier to fish that way, I think.
Yeah, I would say too, like, you can do something like that. You can always, like, I like New Zealand yarn, but, also too, I saw your Instagram reel. You had some of those SA cider pens, and, you can actually mark that high up on the leader away from the fly, and you can just watch that movement relative to where you think your fly is, and that'll help you.
That's a really good way to do it too. And another trick that we use a lot with that is Sno Seal. Like you put on telemark ski boots, and remember the old leather boots, you buy Sno Seal, it's mostly beeswax. But that's the best product that I've seen over the years that you could commercially buy to float a leader. I know they make lots of things, and in the old days, you'd hear people say put mucilin, that just kind of washes off in an oil slick right away on the water. So that's not very good for longevity, but Sno Seal will stay on the leader. So what I like to do a lot is use those marker pens. And then after the marker pen's there, I put a layer of Sno Seal right over top of it, and that'll float. That'll float all day long. You don't have to retreat it. It's there for the duration,
Yeah, and I would tell people too, there's an advantage to having more than one color, because you will find wherever you fish that you're going to get better contrast probably with one color versus the other, and you can even alternate colors, but that's another trick, right?
Yeah, it is. I like to, times I do it on a form. And I mean, that sounds picky, but it's a whole lot easier and faster to do. So if you just take it and roll it on, like I carry a piece of PVC in the truck. There's always a little piece of PVC for ham radio stuff, and I'll just take the mono and wrap it like 10 times on, say, 1.5 2 inch form. And then you take one color and, make it look like a yellow jacket. You'd use yellow and black. A chartreuse and pink. I mean, you can do whatever color combo you want, but I like to have a lot of separate colors rather than just a solid color. Usually I'll do, multiple colors. And it's real quick to do. If you just wind it, then hit it, just draw a straight line down, draw another straight line down, and you're done,
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't thought about beeswax since I was in the Boy Scouts. That's what I used to treat my my boots with, and used to hit them with the hairdryer.
Oh, yeah. It'll make them shine and repel water.
Yeah. So some tips, folks. What I would say too, as we head deeper into the summertime, don't forget what we've said in the past few fishing reports about how terrestrials are going to become more and more powerful: inchworms, beetles, ants, all kinds of good stuff. But one thing we wanted to let you guys know about, if you haven't seen it yet, in the outdoor community, there's been a lot of communication around in the budget bill that's working its way through Congress right now. The Senate version has put in the provision to sell a significant amount of public land. And that's obviously upset hunters, fishermen, hikers, all kinds of outdoor recreation enthusiasts. And I'm going to drop a link to Trout Unlimited, is one of many outdoor organizations. If you belong to Backcountry Hunters and Anglers or Sierra Club or any of those groups, they're going to have links to reach out to your senators and your congressmen. But I would encourage you to do that. The deadline is the 4th of July weekend. That's kind of generally where the process is running. So if you value access to public lands to hunt, fish, hike, and recreate, I would encourage you to tap the link that I'm going to put in the show notes and let your elected officials know that.
That's right. Yeah, I think that'd be really helpful, because that's about the only recourse we have is anglers and hunters and, trail hikers. I mean, we like to do a lot of hiking here in the national park. It's not national parks that are at risk, but there's so many Forest Service and BLM land on the western part of the United States are looking at selling off, and it'd be a good thing to really push hard and push back this next week for folks.
Yeah, and I would say, folks, when it's gone, it's gone. So if it's important to you, you need to make your voice heard.
That's right.
Well, as we both try to stay cool, so you're drinking lemonade and gin and tonics and beer in the shade up in Bryson City. I know you're guiding. You don't have schools until the fall, but you want to kind of let folks know how to reach out and get on the guidebook, talk about schools and all that kind of good stuff, Mac Brown?
Sure. The best way is probably email off the websites at macbrownflyfish.com or flyfishingguideschool.com. Then social media, same name on Instagram and Facebook. But it's better to email, though, off the URL, because I don't always look at I'm not as savvy about the social media stuff as somebody half my age, probably, Marvin, so email's probably better.
Yeah, I'm savvy, but I still prefer one mailbox as opposed to 6 or 7. So that's just me.
Yeah.
So, well, folks, as I always say, this time of year, I'm going to add a little something. You need to stay cool, and you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Mac.
Tight lines, Marvin.